Bill Cosby is a stand-up comedian and actor. He became an American icon and someone who millions of people looked to as a father figure and a moral compass. He would disappoint the entire world when they began to learn that he was not at all the wonderful person that he portrayed himself to be. Today on Biographics, we're going to talk about the life, the career, and the downfall of Bill Cosby. William H. Cosby Jr. was born in Philadelphia in 1937, and he was one of 4 children. His mother, Anna Pearl, was a maid, and his father, William Henry Cosby Sr., was a steward in the U.S. Navy. He was always the class clown and never took his education very seriously. He had failed so many classes that he decided to drop out of high school in the 10th grade in order to follow in his father's footsteps and join the Navy. He eventually earned a GED through a military program. He went to Temple University in Philadelphia under an athletic scholarship to be on their track and field team. While in college, he worked part-time as a bartender and would enjoy entertaining his customers by telling jokes and making witty comments. His customers encouraged him to get into stand-up comedy, so he began going to East Coast comedy clubs in Philadelphia and New York City. People enjoyed his comedy so much that he was able to book tours to the major cities around the country. He dropped out of college when he was 20 years old in favor of trying to make a career in stand-up. He appeared in several TV series telling his jokes, including The Tonight Show. In 1964, he married a woman named Camille Hanks. She was only 20 years old and in her sophomore year of college at the time, and Bill Cosby was 27. They met on a blind date and didn't know each other that well before they got married. They went on to have 5 children together. During his stand-up routines, Cosby would talk a lot about his kids and how difficult it was being a father. Most parents could relate to everything he was saying, and it was considered to be clean, wholesome comedy. In 1965, Bill Cosby landed a starring role on the TV show I Spy. He became the first African-American to star in a network television show. He was an inspiration to people everywhere, and young black men particularly looked up to him as a role model. However, I Spy was seen almost as a one-hit wonder, and Cosby was not given any more of these dashing roles in the future. Since he was so popular with parents, and he had experience raising kids of his own, he turned one of his stand-up characters, Fat Albert, into a cartoon series geared towards young urban kids. After making some money from his career, he went on to finish his bachelor's and eventually receive a master's degree and a PhD in education from the University of Massachusetts in the 1970s. He used Fat Albert as his thesis statement, explaining all the ways he used the cartoon to educate children. He put all of this on his resume for creating educational content for TV, which helped him land gigs on future shows like Picture Pages, The Electric Company, and more. Deep down, Bill Cosby did not want to continue making children's content, and he was really only doing it for the paycheck. He took a break from TV to come out with comedy albums, and they did extremely well. He won 6 Grammy Awards, and he was suddenly thrust into the limelight as being one of the best stand-up comedians. He would pride himself in writing clean comedy that anyone could listen to, and he would often criticize other black comedians like Eddie Murphy for using obscenities. When he was 47 years old, Bill Cosby starred as a character named Dr. Cliff Huxtable in The Cosby Show. The Huxtables had 5 kids, just like Bill Cosby and his real wife, Camille. People assumed that this story was parallel to who he was in real life. It became so popular, the TV ratings showed that half of the country was tuning in to watch. At that time, black people were almost exclusively portrayed negatively in the media. America witnessed criminal activity and controversial protests from the black community. This was the first show to portray an upper-middle-class black family. Both parents, they were funny, intelligent, and hard-working people who had an education. A black American was finally being seen in a positive light, and it was so genuinely funny, even white people were watching. It helped to bring society together, and it helped them understand that, really, we're all the same. Unbeknownst to the audience, none of this was ever Bill Cosby's idea. The show was created by 2 television producers named Marcy Carsey and Tom Werner. They wanted to come up with a concept for a sitcom that no one had ever done before, and after seeing Bill Cosby's stand-up, they approached him about doing a series. Bill Cosby insisted that he would not work for less than $1 million a year, and the show needed to have his name in the title. He wanted to make this TV show all about him. Even though the producers already knew what they wanted to do with the series, Bill Cosby tried to control the narrative. He pitched the idea that the show should be about a taxi driver who is tasked with taking care of the kids. He wanted to be married to a Latino woman, and he thought it would be funny if she worked a traditionally male role like a carpenter or a plumber. He chose a taxi driver for his character because he wanted to be able to go on monologues for the majority of episodes in order to tell the jokes that he normally told in his stand-up routines. The producers pushed back with Cosby, explaining their original vision for portraying the new black American family. They eventually convinced him to give it a try, and it exploded into a cultural phenomena. However, Bill Cosby received all of the praise and recognition for all of the positive changes that it made in society. The show was filmed in New York City, and it attracted a lot of emerging African-American talent. People loved Bill Cosby's character of Cliff Huxtable, and most people believed that he was just playing an exaggerated version of himself. He was giving black people acting jobs when they had never had the opportunity to work in the industry before as anything more than a background character or an extra. He would have a parade of women who had come to audition to be on The Cosby Show. People who worked with him knew that he was constantly cheating on his wife, but they assumed that these relationships were consensual. A girl would be seen speaking to Cosby, she would get 1 or 2 lines on the show, and then she was never seen again. But no one could have imagined how dark the situation with Bill Cosby actually was when the doors were closed. In a lot of ways, The Cosby Show truly did revolutionize the industry, and no matter who he was as a person, there is no denying that. He was also the first African American to win an Emmy. But for fans of the show, he was America's dad. People idolized him, and he knew it. He wasn't afraid to take advantage of people's trust and their respect to the absolute fullest extent. Even though the vast majority of the show was fiction, there were moments when Bill Cosby incorporated stories from his real life into The Cosby Show. For example, there was his relationship with his son Ennis, who was the parallel to the character of Theo. He grew up getting bad grades in school, and Bill Cosby constantly called his son lazy and told him that he wasn't trying hard enough. It was later revealed that Ennis actually had dyslexia. Once he was given a tutor to help him cope with his disability, he began to do much better in school and went on to attend Columbia University Teachers College, hoping to become a special education teacher. Bill Cosby told the writers of the show what had happened. They used a parallel storyline with the character of Theo. The characters playing Cosby's children, they all grew up, and the show ended in 1992. In 1997, Ennis was on vacation in Los Angeles driving a Mercedes. His car got a flat tire, so he pulled over to the side of the road in order to fix it. In a completely freak act of violence, a young white man who was high on drugs attempted to rob Ennis. Ennis reached for his wallet, but the man shot him in the head. When the paparazzi showed up at Bill Cosby's house asking for a comment about the death of his only son, he quietly said, "He was my hero," and shut the door. After taking some time off to grieve, Bill Cosby returned to show business. He tried and failed to start more TV series as well. He came back in the public eye after his famous Jell-O commercials. He was having financial trouble, and the shows were no longer doing well in the ratings. Behind the scenes of the Jell-O commercials, he scolded parents and kicked children off the set if they were not behaving well enough. He would get into arguments with business executives about how to sell the product because he thought he knew better than them. He would often ad-lib instead of following the actual lines that had been given. Despite being so difficult to work with, he was earning $3 million a year doing just these ads. Bill Cosby realized that the image of a perfect father, it was working, and people loved it. So he decided that he wanted the world to believe that he truly was this great person. He gave college scholarships to African American students and participated in multiple charities in his name. However, his true colors would come out on set and whenever he went on lecture tours. He spoke down to African Americans under the guise of giving people tough love. If his words were spoken by a white person, they would be considered disgustingly racist. He was always very degrading, talking down to other black people as if he was on this pedestal of some sort of moral high ground. One of the most famous examples of this is known as the Pound Cake speech. During this speech, given at the NAACP on the 50th anniversary of Brown and Board of Education, Bill Cosby blamed black parents for their children's poor behavior, and he went on a 20-minute rant lecturing and talking down to African Americans who were living in poverty. He said that if it were not for their laziness and irresponsibility, then white people would have more respect for African Americans. He said, "We are not Africans. Those people are not Africans. They don't know a damned thing about Africa," with names like Shaniqua, Shaligwa, Muhammad, and all that crap, and all of them are in jail. It was so bad that in the transcript, the NAACP had to add their own commentary in parenthesis after some of Cosby's worst comments, just so that people would know that they disagree with a lot of what he said. Some people agreed with Bill Cosby and applauded him. Others called him a race traitor. In 2005, a sociologist and professor from the University of Pennsylvania named Michael Eric Dyson wrote an entire book in response called "Is Bill Cosby Right, or Has the Black Middle Class Lost Its Mind?" Dyson breaks down point by point just how wrong Bill Cosby is and how truly difficult it is for African Americans to overcome racial bias, white privilege, and socioeconomic disadvantages. It was never a secret that Bill Cosby was cheating on his wife. He was often called a womanizer and openly admitted in multiple interviews that he had girlfriends outside of his marriage. Once in Ebony magazine he said, "When you turn 40, you look at the enjoyment you may get from a given activity, and then you look at the amount of work that may have to go into it. For example, sex with a young, beautiful woman who has plenty of energy." A talented young actress named Lili Bernard was mentoring under Bill Cosby in the hopes that she could get a part on the show. She was honored that he was taking the time to teach her about acting. He always told her that she was one of his kids, and she truly did see him as a father. She never had any intentions of sleeping with him and believed that everything was strictly professional. She became friends with the other actors on set, and everyone believed that she would eventually become a new character on the show. When Cosby thought she was ready, she finally got the part in the TV show, which was a speaking role that only lasted for a few seconds. After knowing her for a year, Bill Cosby convinced her to go to Atlantic City with the promise that she would meet an agent who was going to help with her acting career. She had no reason not to trust him. After all, she felt like Bill Cosby was her dad. When they got there, he gave her a drink and she blacked out. She woke up to him raping her on the floor. It was so surreal she couldn't believe it was happening. She was in denial, hoping that it was just a bad dream. When it was over and reality sank in, she told him that she would go to the police. He threatened to sue her for defamation and told her that she would go to jail. He also threatened to completely ruin her acting career. He told her, "You're dead to me, Bernard. You hear me? You're dead." Lili Bernard was no longer allowed on the set of The Cosby Show. Not only did she lose her mentor and father figure, but she also lost all of her friends that she got to see every day. The event was beyond traumatizing for her. She attempted to get a role in a few other TV shows, but eventually gave up on acting and decided to become an artist. Even years after the rape, Lili Bernard was afraid to come forward because she truly did believe that he would make good on the promise to sue her for defamation. She was a struggling actress in New York who could not pay her rent, let alone hire a lawyer. She also knew that if the idea of Bill Cosby meant so much to her, it would also crush the hopes and dreams of African Americans across the country. She also knew that no one would believe her. Now, it's important we add here, this was just one of many stories, and we couldn't possibly go over all of them in this short video. A total of 60 women came forward with similar stories about Bill Cosby. Andrea Constand was the first woman to come forward and publicly accuse him of rape. He offered to pay for her college degree, but she brought him to court instead. Several journalists wrote about the case, but many people brushed it off as a false accusation. People said that Constand was just trying to make money from Bill Cosby and that he couldn't possibly be anything but this perfect Cliff Huxtable guy that the kids all grew up with. Despite all of the proof being out there, the issue was not reignited again until 2014. A stand-up comedian named Hannibal Buress was gaining a lot of attention for his role in the Comedy Central series Broad City. During one of his stand-up shows, he called out Bill Cosby, saying that he had no right to lecture black people on their bad behavior when he himself is a rapist. The story went viral. Suddenly people knew, and they actually listened, because it was another black man confirming the truth. Soon after she went public, 13 women approached Andrea Constand to say that they had also been victims of rape by Bill Cosby. Soon after the comments by Hannibal Buress went viral, a reporter from the Associated Press attempted to ask him about the accusations. During this interview, we can see firsthand how Bill Cosby uses intimidation to make the reporter back down from revealing his comments on the rape accusations. He tells the reporter that if he wants to have a serious career, he will not show the questions in their film. He was seen as so powerful that he was untouchable. Despite all of these accusations coming forward in the media, people truly could not fathom that Bill Cosby was a rapist. Many of his friends, they came forward to defend him, including Whoopi Goldberg. She later recanted her statement. The first trial had a hung jury. They could not decide if he was guilty or not. Trials are supposed to be unbiased, and jurors are not supposed to learn too much about a defendant outside of the courtroom. But decades of seeing Cliff Huxtable on The Cosby Show on TV meant it was nearly impossible for people to separate the two, no matter how hard they tried. They just couldn't believe that this sweet man was capable of such a horrible thing. Bill Cosby admitted more than once that yes, he gave Quaaludes to women in order to have sex with them, but he didn't define that as rape. He had actually admitted this in interviews with magazines years before, but after hearing him say this so casually on the witness stand, the jurors knew that he was truly guilty. Even though 60 women have come forward, only 3 brought their claims to court. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean the rest are lying. It just means that they want to move on with their lives and not have to retell the stories of the worst moment in their life and have their personal and family lives exposed in the media. In September of 2018, he was convicted of aggravated indecent assault and was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. At 81 years old, it's very likely that he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below. Don't forget to subscribe. Got a suggestion for us? Leave it in the comments below. And if you see one you like, upvote it. The ones that come to the top I'm most likely to see. And we're thinking about making some of those. So go ahead and do that. Also, if you're looking for something else to watch right now, I've got another channel called Today I Found Out. You'll find that linked to on the screen now, as well as below this video. And as always, thank you for watching.